Before starting with the talk, there were two things I forgot to mention last night in the opening talk, which are important. And one is the amount of meeting time for each person during this retreat. There are approximately 40 hours of meeting time during this week, and approximately 48 people, not all of whom may come to all meetings. This is up to each one. So it means approximately an hour of meeting time for everyone during the 7-day retreat. Which means approximately 10 minutes. If we had a meeting every day, it never turns out this way because it's always a little bit more than 10 minutes. But if we keep approximately 10 minutes in mind, it's also easier to read from the clock, 10 minutes, when the hand is from here to there, from there to there. We have a feeling for that. And if you think of it, let's both look at the clock at the beginning of the meeting, so the responsibility for ending the meeting does not just fall on me. It's very nice if we both take care of that. And yet not to feel the pressure if something more needs to be said, then we'll take the time. Maybe some other time less needs to be said and we can end a little bit earlier. Toward the end of the retreat, meetings may expand a little bit, but we can't predict. We'll see as we go. The other thing is about the chair that I usually sit on, maybe just for a few minutes before meeting start, and the half hour before the talk. During the talk, the chair is put someplace. Where is it put? Outside in the hall? Right in front of the door? So anyone who wishes to use that chair can get it and put it wherever they want to sit during the talk. Put a mat, put a carpet strip under it. The rest of the time when I'm not sitting on this chair is available for anyone to sit on who wishes to. You don't have to move it to your mat. Just sit here during the round or 2 rounds and then give someone else a chance. This is the first talk of the July 88 7-day retreat. Quite a number of people here who've never been here before, maybe never been to a retreat here or with Toni before. And there are all of us who've been to some retreats or many retreats or uncountable retreats. So it's important, isn't it, that we listen freshly. Listen with fresh ears to something new. Because what is said right now has not been said before, even though the words may be similar or the same. But this moment here hasn't been here before, which is an ever marvelous thing. So can one listen? Not with all the memory one has about what she usually says in the first talk about listening. Then the mind wanders because it doesn't want to hear old stuff, which it already knows. Or else it listens to what is being said through the old stuff, which is not listening. It is remaining in a very narrow channel of memory within the brain and whatever is affected throughout the body by listening from memory. Maybe bracing against something that one doesn't want to hear, one remembers. Ignoring, trying to get away from, because the memory is so compelling. But we're talking about this right now because talking about this may mean that this can come into awareness. The bracing against something that is said, the not wanting to hear that. And therefore, this automatic response, since there is awareness, need not continue. And there can be the openness of listening, of living, I almost said, it's the same thing. Without the automaticness of habit, which compels and dictates what to listen to, how to listen to it. And it filters, so the perception is not open and clear. As asking, it seems a monumental thing to listen freshly, and yet it is not impossible. When there is a subtle awareness of all the controls and resistances that come from memory. It's not hard to listen to the birds, is it? Or is one already remembering this is bird song? Then one doesn't hear. Then one, Can you see that if the mind projects that statement, that's birds singing, then it is mostly occupied with that statement, which is flat. It's not the aliveness of something one has never heard before. Now, listening to birds chirping like that doesn't have too many complications. The birds are not out to hurt us or point things up in us, except the labeling, the naming. But they don't give us a hard time. And yet it may feel that what is said here is pointing to things which we don't want to look at. It may feel like being given a hard time. So, how will one listen? Or move along with what is being said, even if it brings reactions of pain or anger or hurt, wanting to run away. Thinking of something else, fantasizing. So, is it possible, not the whole time, there's no perfection in anything, but most of the time, a good part of the time, to really not just listen to words, because it's not just words which are being communicated. These words come from looking at something in ourselves, which is directly observable, perceivable, as it takes place in oneself, from moment to moment. Which means, again, an opening to the whole thing, not just the words that are being said, but the reactions that come up, or looking at what is being talked about directly. Without coming to any conclusion about it. Not knowing it, but being in touch with it as it happens. So, from that, it follows quite clearly, doesn't it, that what is said is not dogma, a rigid teaching. It is not said with authority. And please not to make authority out of the person who is speaking, because that is a good excuse for not looking for oneself. We've done this all our life, or most of our life, taking the word of the person who seems to be expert or in authority or knowledgeable, and not looking for ourselves. Following the authority is so much easier than the energy and arduousness of looking and investigating for oneself, whether what is said is actually so. Not to take Toni's or anyone's word for anything, but to look and examine and question. Leave it open to see whether this is so or not. Then our relationship with each other is a viable relationship, not of authority and student, teacher, and pupil or student, but of two people, or however many, investigating the same thing together, and starting from not knowing, not having the answers, from memory, from the past, my past experiences, I know this is so. But starting afresh. And therefore with the energy and clarity and freedom of looking now. So if something does not make sense, maybe I talk too fast. Sometimes people tell me this. This is very helpful when you tell me things like this. Don't talk too fast. Talk slowly. Or could you say again what you said about such and such if you come to a meeting? I may not, very likely, I'm not able to say the same thing. I don't remember. But we can start again with the same thing and go through it together. Maybe come upon something new that didn't happen during this talk. So please feel free to bring up what was not understood or seen to be different. And don't worry about asking the same thing. One person said, Will you say this again to me if I bring it up? Of course. With joy. If you're interested, then something gets going in both of us. This is not a one-way street. This is, if we look at something together, a word comes up from cybernetics. It's called, then we are a coupled system. With a shared energy. a shared interest in finding out and discovering. And being free to say, wait a minute, what did you mean by that? Before you go on, we ask each other, what do you mean? Because we use words so loosely. We've learned all our life long to converse and think in words, most of which we don't know what they actually refer to. And we're able to do this because there's sort of an implicit, unspoken agreement that we can exchange words and stuff and not really know what it means. So let's interrupt each other and say, what do you mean by that? And not feel called on the spot, but opening up and saying, yeah, what does this word refer to? And look in oneself. One may never have done this before. It's an amazing thing when spoken words are not just floating there like flotsam, but point to something that can be directly felt and seen and understood and maybe dropped. I hope none of you minds that questions which come up in meetings become talks, become topics for talks. It has happened this way for years now, and it deals with the life of this retreat, with the life of each one of us, with our shared problems. Just because the question surfaces and expressed by one person does not mean it is his or her personal problem or personal question. Scratching a little bit the veneer that all of us, all of our minds are covered over with, the veneer of our individual personality. Going deeper, we will find that we all share the same problems, human problems of wanting, fearing, seeking shelter, seeking safety, security, in relationships, in acquisitions, possessions, in beliefs, opinions, in knowledge, tremendous security in our whole, brought about by our whole educational system. Security and invested in knowledge. What we commonly share throughout this globe since time immemorial is this strongest of beliefs that we each are a separate individuality, separate from each other. And yet in looking at the questions that A, B, or C may bring up, one begins to glimpse the commonness of our problems, of our ways of thinking and fearing and wanting, hoping, despairing, suffering, seeking pleasure, wanting rewards, running away from punishment or pain. It's all completely common to all of us. Do you see that? Has different colorings, shadings, and content for each one of us, because we each have a unique background of experiences. But that we all have. That's common, that we all have a unique background of experiences. And what we usually cling to and focus on is our individuality, our differences. Because we are heavily invested for life, it seems, in this self, which is unique, different, separate, attached to its past experiences, to its knowledge, its being something or other, expressed in images, being talented or being no good, being successful or being a failure. All of us invested in our idea of ourselves, unconsciously, most of the time, or just partially aware of it. And therefore that keeps operating in our relationship with each other and causes the antagonisms, the divisions, the difficulties. And the inability to learn unless light is shed upon all of this. I don't mean to learn information, but to learn about oneself as one goes, from moment to moment, without making a new possession out of this learning, storing it up to keep it for when it comes in handy. It never comes in handy. What needs to be done right now is to look freshly. Albeit, memory can be available. If it is not compulsively driving, it can be helpful. If it is drawn upon with awareness and not darkly pushes and pulls us habitually. So coming back to where this started out, questions which are brought up in individual meetings come up for talk. Never so that the identity of anyone is revealed. That's not the point. We're not exposing anyone. We're exposing the human mind, not the individual personal mind, which is so protected, so afraid of being exposed. But unless we learn about it, we're forever enslaved by it, blinded by it, acting repetitiously, doing the same mistakes over and over. As the question that may have been coming up in a past meeting, as it comes up in the talk, it is no longer verbatim the same thing that came up during the meeting. If a person may remember his or her question verbatim, may find that it doesn't sound like this anymore, so one may feel, this is not my question, she misunderstood. It isn't your question anymore. It is a new question, which concerns all of us. It may have been misunderstood, it may not have been. That we have to clear up together alone during a meeting. Very often, as a question comes up in a talk, it is a conglomerate of many similar questions, or a new synthesis, something new. So can one detach from one's personal investment in what one says and just listen freshly. This moment, seeing at the time how we attached we are to our image and what it all includes. It's amazing what it includes. One knows from sitting together having a discussion, one may have said something, maybe wasn't quite clear about it. But having said it, it has become one's property, which one defends. Just because one has said, because it happened to come out of this mouth, one may feel urged, compelled to defend it, as other people may say something about what has been said. One is identified with one's opinions. Looking at it this way may seem strange, but it's a fact. Sometimes we defend to the hilt what we realize is indefendable. And yet still do it because out of a much deeper layer of fear that one may be run over roughshod, not respected, not appreciated, not be on equal footing with others, and the resentment over that or the fear of that, the yearning to be as others, respected. And rather than looking at that, being in touch with these deeper things, one defends what one said or opinionated. If that is noticed, if one, see, by talking about it right now and listening and looking for oneself, something is aired, something happens, something becomes clear. And maybe the next time when such a situation arises, it becomes clear all of a sudden what one is engaged or what we are all engaged in. And one may not have to continue that and therefore communicate with each other on a much deeper level, which is not so self-invested, so personalized. Because with personalization, inevitably comes defense. Don't accept what is being said, but question it. You can say, no, I'm not trying to defend my person, I'm trying to find out more about myself. Personally. Is one invested in the idea of personal growth? One wants to find out more and more and more about oneself. And is there a cumulative and accumulating process taking place? And does that accumulating of what one knows about oneself, does that allow it to be open as new things happen? Or does it put its stamp on the new perception? One has to find out. It is for each one of us to discover. One person mentioned to me a while ago, whenever you say something that seems important, I immediately feel, I gotta remember that. What did she say? Will I remember that? You don't have to remember it. If something is seen, that seeing is the essential thing, not what it is that is seen. If the mind is anxiously wondering whether it will remember, like trying to hoard the goodies, then it is occupied with wanting and fearing, preserving. And such a mind is not open and vulnerable to see now. Seeing, insight into what is happening now, does not come from memory. Where it comes from, I don't know. It comes without a cause. Memorizing becomes the cause of an effect, to remember what was and to act in accordance with what is remembered, to behave in accordance with memory. But that is not the freshness of seeing and acting out of clarity. And yet, we said it before, by looking at things, the mind occupied with what is being said, discussing it in meetings, or questioning it for oneself, has some kind of a relationship with suddenly discovering, yeah, this is so. And the amazement of it. The amazement of seeing something directly, which up till then one has only been thinking about. Because there's a vast difference between thinking and seeing. It's a completely different functioning of the brain. We'll leave that aside for the moment. We'll come back to it off and on during these 7 days. And please, if it interests you and concerns you and you want to ask about it, we have the time for it in our daily or almost daily meetings. One question which comes up a lot, particularly if one comes here for the first time, or for the 20th or 50th time. When I sit down, what should I do? I've heard you say that there are no practices or techniques to be used or given out here. Assigned, there's no practice assigned, no technique recommended for concentrating the mind or meditating. What should I do? Well, what does one do? What does happen as one sits down? Does one see the difference? One is, what should I do, which is an ancient conditioned response. I should do something that is right, that conforms with what is done here, that will get me someplace, that will be good. But what we're asking is, in sitting down, what is happening? What is happening as the body changes, the legs sort of cross, or the bottom hits the chair? What's happening? What's going on? Is there already some awareness as one starts sitting down? Or is the idea, and we've talked about that ideas are usually completely detached from what is actually happening. The idea is, I've got to sit now and then, what will I do? It's all heady, albeit every idea has physical accompaniment. But there's no what I should do, but what am I doing? What's going on? This instant. As this thought goes through the mind, is there a feeling in the soles of the feet, in the bending knees, the seat touching the cushion? As one may move around some bit to loosen up or relax, is there awareness? Or are these things that are gone through while the mind either thinks about it or thinks about something entirely different? See, the whole world is right there. Not what to do, but what is there? So, sitting down or getting up, is one awake? Not just schematizing it now. Now she said the soles of the feet, and then the bending knees, and then this. One can so quickly make a scheme out of it, and now we have something to follow, to pay attention to. We've been raised that way. We've been told everything what to do, almost since the day we were born. Being with parents and little children, now it is utterly amazing to hear how a stream of commands, do this, don't do that, this is good, this is bad, keeps coming at a little child. How they survive it is hard to imagine. Of course, we see how we survive it. We now have to be told what to do, and we think this is bad, this is good. The guilt, the wanting approval, the fear of punishment. Constantly being told this is right, this is wrong. Do this at the table, don't do that. So no wonder that is what the brain is now demanding. Instructions on how to behave, what to experience, what to look for, what to strive for. That's how we've been programmed. And we pass it on to our children, or if we're teachers, to the students. Because this is the right way to do it. We've rationalized it all. But here, one may not realize it. If the mind is programmed, it doesn't look. But if it begins to question its programs, question it deeply, may realize And it's all right to find out what's going on and not ask, what should I do? It's all right to look and listen and feel, taste or touch, without knowing where it will lead, what good it is, whether it will be approved or not. Just doing it, letting it happen. And no one checking out on one, whether one is progressing. There's no progressing in this, is there? It's just attending. Either attending or inattending. That's all. Does the mind already say, is that all? Is that what I came here for? Listen to the headlines that are being poured out by the brain about what is going on, what we are, what should be, and so forth. Just listen to it, then you're not taken in by it. As part of what's going on, constantly telling oneself in words what is going on, and then being affected by these words, depending on the weightiness of emotions that the words carry. I'm not getting any place, I'm no good. Saying these things to oneself has an immediate impact on the whole physical system. And these words are part of the physical system, because thought is a physical process, totally tied and linked with every organismic functioning that this body is capable of. Can one pay attention to that, become aware of it? How one thought, fearful thought, hopeful thought, skeptical thought, doubting thought, one description about what one is about sets this whole physical organism into motion. Not that it was at peace before, it was in another motion, but now is a new motion, emotion. Anxiety, anger, resentment, or pleasure. And then from these feelings and sensations and emotions, new thoughts. I hope I continue feeling like this, it feels good. Or I hope it'll go away soon, I must get rid of it. And these thoughts, I don't like it, I hate it. How can I control it or get rid of it? These thoughts have new physical impact. The impact that comes with every conflict. Being in conflict with what is actually happening brings more physical response. Can one observe that? Be aware of that? As it happens? Just listen subtly, quietly to the birds, the sounds of people moving, someone walking, the branches maybe waving in the wind, rustling of leaves, and the thoughts and their impact, their reaction, the physical movements, and the resistance to that or the holding on to it. So that this totality of aliveness, this moment, comes into awareness without judgment. I forgot to mention in a talk, our usual request not to move around doesn't apply. Please, when you feel uncomfortable in a position during a talk, feel free to change your legs. That too is like the breeze going through the woods, isn't it? So, what should I do when I sit down? I don't know. Listen, look, attend. Find out what's there. One person said, I have no touch with bodily feelings, almost none. I feel numb. But to say that implies some awareness, doesn't it? Or else one would not be able to say, I feel numb. Saying that, putting it in those words, has an immediate impact, psychologically, mentally, physically. No one should feel numb, is the reaction to it. I wish I felt differently. Can one observe the discontent that comes with making a statement about oneself? One doesn't want to feel this way. And the comparison, other people look or seem so more lively, they probably don't feel numb. And then the feelings that come from comparison. I wish I was like that, and the depression or maybe resentment about the way one feels, or despair, I'm hopeless. Saying something like that has an immediate physical impact. It's a downer, as we say. The energy is drained by statements like this about oneself. It is drained by comparing oneself to others. Can one observe all of that? We're talking about it right now. We're looking at it. And then sitting down, can one see this is comparison? And one doesn't have to compare. One doesn't have to label this present state numbness. In talking with each other, yes, we're labeling it. But sitting down, what is this right now? If I don't compare, if I don't label it, I don't know it from the past, because that past numbness, in quotes, is not what's here now. What's here now is what? I don't know. Can I listen to it? Be in touch with it? In touch with numbness, but not call it numbness? Without wanting it to be otherwise? Without wanting? Without being afraid of it or running away from it? Then what is it? It's a big question, isn't it? An enormous question. And I'm not interested in the replies that the brain will supply. It's this, it's that, it's because of this, and describing it and explaining it. I want to be in touch with what's going on right now. And memory is of no help in this. Techniques aren't. Because techniques keep one apart from what is. What is this state? Right now. I have no name, no word for it. If words come up, just to listen to that too, like the twittering of the birds. Words, explanations, headlines. That's what's going on. Can the listening be there? So quietly, meaning not opposing what's going on, not resisting, not knowing where it leads. Somebody asked me, this thing of sitting quietly, does this mean I have to control myself? You see, what we're asking here is something that has nothing to do with control. No, please be aware of control mechanisms are operating. I must not move, I shouldn't move, it's bad, it's wrong. And then the tensing to keep oneself under control. If a class of school children, at least in the olden days, it's not like this today in this country at least, if they were asked to sit still, a certain rigid posture was assumed. That was control. What is asked here is, can light be shed on the million ways in which we try to escape from what is? And our physical movements, our twitching and thrashing about, or drumming fingernails, or trying to scratch and itch, are all the manifestation of trying to get away from something through habit. And that is illumined if one listens and looks at it without controlling it. Control is just another habit. It doesn't shed light. Just to feel the itch and feel the urge to scratch the itch and not go along with a habit, just attend to it with interest, with curiosity. What's going to happen? To look, to feel it. It's amazing. The habitual urge does not have to happen. One doesn't have to scratch. And the itch is not an itch if it's left alone. It goes away. It's something entirely different from what one thinks it is. And to have that possibility of discovering this goes with not moving for a while. Exposing our tremendous reservoir of escaping or habitually moving the body in order not to face something. If the body doesn't move and is not controlled not to move, but listened to, then something may be revealed of what it is that one is trying to get away from. Does that make sense? Find out. We will end here for today.